we got ourselves NFL Cut Down Day, and we have the perfect guest to talk about the state of the 49ers, not just the quarterback room, but the entire team, because Mike Silver knows what he's talking about, so much so that he is now part of the San Francisco Chronicle covering the NFL, the 49ers, and it's great to have him here on 95.7 The Game as well. What's going on, Mike Silver? It's been a long time, pal.
Yeah, good to talk to you guys, and I feel like there's, a little bit of Niner news out there lately, so
just a touch.
Here we are.
They already lead the NFL in interesting, that's for sure. With all the time that you spent in Santa Clara talking with Kyle, with John Lynch, with Jed York, at any point in time, could you have stuck your finger up to feel which way the wind was blowing on this Jimmy Garoppolo story, or did it hit you with as much surprise as it hit kind of the rest of the world with?
I wouldn't say I was shocked, but certainly Kyle's been pretty good about not lying publicly, and he did publicly come out not that long ago, late July, and say Trey's team, basically we're not bringing Jimmy back. And then, of course, they were worried about exposing him to injury in practice because they would have been on the hook for the $24.2 million, but that wouldn't have precluded them from saying, hey, just in case, why don't you go to meetings and travel with us, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't do that. They were like, dude, whatever you want to do, come in, don't come in, throw on your own, go to meetings, don't go to meetings, and basically we're treating him like he was already gone. So something changed, and I think we can spend a lot of time talking about the potential advantages of this or what ancillary benefits might come up, like someone else could get hurt, they could trade him, blah, blah, blah. But if you are, ignoring the basic reality, which is hitting us all in the face, which is this is a hedge and there's a reason he's hedging, I think you're in delusion land. But, then again, a lot of fans tend to be there.
What, in your opinion, based on whoever you've talked to, was the tipping point in your mind that turned this from not considerable to, hey, this makes the most sense of all?
I mean, look, it's just been, Jimmy threw his last pass on January 30th and, near miss loss that cost him a Super Bowl trip. And then it was presumed he was gone. Trey Lance had that entire offseason to, substantiate that belief. And remember, he's a very young quarterback. He didn't play a ton in college and all that. So it's not like, oh, he's going to have it all figured out immediately. But they saw him in OTAs. They saw him last year practice. I was told that in the off season that sometimes the accuracy was there. Sometimes it was glaringly not there. That was concerning. There were times he couldn't throw or was not allowed to throw during some sessions, and that the arms seemed to be worn out from a change in throwing motion. That's obviously something that gets their attention. And then training camp started, and look, I know the games aren't real, and I know joint practices aren't the end-all be-all, and certainly I'm not one of the journalists who tries to chart training camp completion percentage and freak out over any one play, but just to the naked eye, it followed that pattern. There were times where the accuracy looked like it was there. There were times when it looked like it didn't. And so you've got a team built to win now. You've got, obviously a great game planner and schemer who's going to put Trey Lance in the best position to thrive. But I think in the end, Kyle just decided, here's an opportunity. Yes, it will create more drama, and yes, it will potentially add some stress to an already stressful situation for a young player, but that's worth it to me because now I have a hedge.
Mike Silver here on 95.7 The Game. So if this goes right, either, Garoppolo doesn't play at all because Lance is, taking the world by storm, does not get hurt, and he lines up and he starts 17 games in a row. And Jimmy remains a rumor, and it helps the mystery around him and bounces him into a fruitful 2023, maybe somewhere else. Maybe Yeah, I mean, maybe he goes ahead and he actually plays a few games, starts a few games. When it comes to this not working out well, how would you imagine it not working out well and that actually being something that blows up the year, given how well you know everyone involved?
Well, the best would be if Trey Lance comes in and plays well enough to justify the promise shown when they traded 3-1s and got in position to draft him. And he has a lot of upside, and he is, I'm told that he's very, very intelligent. He obviously has a big arm. He obviously has some athletic traits that jump out at you, and he seems to be a very good guy who will do this the right way. So all of that is encouraging. So the best thing would be if he comes in and, he may not be Patrick Mahomes year 2. I mean, no one's going to be, but if he looks good and they're winning, then cool. It all works out. If that doesn't go well and it suggests that it never will, which, there's some in between there, then yeah, you can maybe have Jimmy this season jump in and maybe make another run, but that's concerning from a franchise building perspective. I get it though. The window doesn't last forever necessarily. They're definitely built to win now. They've got elite players in a lot of positions, and they should not be in the business of saying, well, let's just throw them out there and see how this year goes. I mean, they're going to play Justin Fields at the opener. The Bears are basically doing that. They're like, let's throw him out again. If we win this year, great, but we need to see what this guy is. The Jaguars are doing that with Trevor Lawrence. The Jets are doing that with Zach Wilson. The Patriots don't think they're doing that with Mac Jones, but that's a whole other disaster that is brewing that we could get into. But the 49ers are not them. They are a team that almost made the Super Bowl last year with Jimmy and certainly have every right to go into this year thinking we're good enough to get there.
In your considered opinion, what would be the signal, and when do you think it would be most likely that Shanahan would decide, I got to change quarterbacks, and I'm eliminating injury as a possibility here? How many weeks of rope do you think is Shanahan's sort of rule of thumb here if things don't go great right away?
Well, let's look at last year as a guide, because they had already drafted Trey and knew he was the future, and they had a rough patch, and then just a flaccid, desultory defeat at home to the Cardinals, where they looked lifeless and ineffective, and they fell to 3-5. And I wrote off that game for Bally Sports, and I remember writing, hey, it's probably time to take a look at Trey at this point. Like, they're 3-5 and they look lifeless. And they stuck with Jimmy, killed the Rams, went on an epic run, and if Jaquiski Tartt holds out of the ball, they win the Lombardi. So that was 8 games that he stayed with them. I don't know. They're different pressure points. And also, how bad does it look, right? If it looks just awful and, they're not winning, then you could do it quickly. But I don't think it's something you do quickly or lightly because of the investment. And, I don't want people to take this as they traded 3-1s, they took this guy, and now they're convinced he can't play. That would be an overstatement. But also those who say this is just for, convenience, and it's nice to have Jimmy, and now they can trade him maybe later, like that would be Pollyanna-ish too. They aren't convinced that he can't play, but they still aren't convinced that he can play right now at the level they need him to.
Nothing shows you can play in the NFL until you go out and prove that you can play in the NFL. We've seen Heisman Trophy winners burn out in this league, for goodness sakes. It ain't easy. Mike Silver joining us here on 95.7 The Game. He's with the Chronicle. You can find him on, Bally Sports. You're doing the thing with Cowherd over on The Volume. We're happy to have him here. And look, my last question on Jimmy is this, because we got the rest of this roster and the rest of this league to kind of have a thumbnail sketch with you going forward here, Mike. But you wrote the story about how it was hard to contact Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason. That obviously, didn't matter in the soup of this whole deal to bring him back as a backup. Did you think that was like odd that they got that story to you or out somehow? And, of course you went with it. You had a good source, but it felt like that was the first time we had really ever heard anything about it other than George Kittle saying, I have trouble getting Jimmy on the phone. But that's George. That's not the franchise, So I thought that was an oddly timed story. Did you think it was going to play any role in any outcome with Garoppolo?
Well, I think Ray will follow me here. So Ray, who was one of the great beat writers ever in the Bay Area during that Giants era and later became a columnist, and I'm now a columnist, was a beat writer covering the Niners way back when. This whole fascination with how the sausage is made, or better yet, belief that people know something, is kind of amusing to us grizzled veterans. So yeah, nobody fed me any story at that time, right? First of all, I had about 12 sources, and secondly, I have known it for a while. Why did it come out now? Well, A, I got hired by the San Francisco Chronicle to focus intensely on one team as opposed to all 32. And two, I was using it to make a point to start a column. And the point was this. Yeah, Trey Lance is not going to be perfect. It could be really, frustrating for Kyle, but he has been driven crazy before by other quarterbacks in different ways, including the most recent one. So that was my point. Jimmy Garoppolo, they paid him. They made him the highest paid player in football briefly in 2018, and then he left the press conference and ghosted them for weeks and weeks. And they were like, huh? He did that the next offseason. He did it the next one. He didn't do it after they drafted Trey Lance. He was great that offseason, and then he did it again this year, perhaps more understandably. So things like that can drive a coach crazy too, and there are things about Jimmy that Kyle's had to, compensate for as they go. So with Trey, it may be different things. So that was my point. I invite all the people who think they know how journalism is conducted in any way to step right up and take their swings and miss, and I will laugh at them publicly.
And on that note, welcome one and all to your 5 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco. Always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. Damn well better be free. I'll just reveal Mike's one big journalistic secret. He, like I, am a barely functioning alcoholic.
You know what it is? You know what it really is? I'm an exceptionally charming human, and it freaks people out that I'm able to, cultivate relationships that lead me to information. But if you knew me and understood how incredibly charming I am, you might have a better sense of it. And, also you might understand sarcasm, or you might not. I don't know.
Well, in fairness, you've kept it very well hidden all these years.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's part of the charm, Ray.
Yeah. In terms of what happened and how it happened, let me just ask this. Is any of this conceivable if this isn't a Super Bowl contender?
I'm sorry. Could you? I cut out for a second.
Okay.
Super Bowl contender.
Does any of this Garoppolo, Lance, Sturman, Drong happen if this team is not a clear Super Bowl contender?
I don't think so. But on the other hand, and fans should like this. This is an organization that, for decades, has only cared about the Super Bowl. Finishing second really doesn't have any appeal to them, and I know that sounds like every team, but like last year's run, it's if you ain't first, you're last, almost, to quote a Royce Bobby or from the great Talladega Nights line. But Eddie was win it or it doesn't matter, and Jed has picked that up, and Kyle is very, very much of that ilk. And so, yes, it wouldn't happen if they didn't have a team constructed to win the Super Bowl. But I also, think Kyle, in the back of his mind, believes he can win the Super Bowl every year, except maybe that first year when that roster was just so sketch and he knew it.
I think that they can win the Super Bowl with this defense. And I wanted to ask you, not only about the final 53-man roster and if any cut surprised you necessarily, but about this defensive line, which beyond quarterback, beyond running back, is far and away this franchise's signature unit. And I think Nick Bosa might be one of the best watches in all of football since he's joined the league. Like, my eyes, I can't stop watching him almost by himself when he's out on that field. What kind of year do you think Bosa is about to have?
Well, first of all, they also have Fred Warner, who's one of the best players in the league and is exceptional, and they've got Kittle, and they've got Juszczyk and Trent Williams. I mean, they have dudes. They have a lot of people, Devo, who are considered at the very top or near the top of, their position group. Defensively, to me, so in 2019, they were dominant for much of that season. They had Buckner, who is, quietly one of the best players in the league. Kinlaw was supposed to compensate for that. He's had injuries. I've heard great things about him coming back, how he looks, what his mentality is. If Kinlaw can become a force, then all of a sudden you've got him and Armstead on the inside. You've got Bosa, obviously, a monster on one edge. And then can you get a push on the other side from Ekobom or one of these other guys, the guy they drafted, Drake, it's possible that front could be really, really good. And I think Kinlaw's the key. The linebackers, led by Warner, are terrific. And the secondary looks a lot better. And they have this whole pick city thing going where they're getting turnovers in practice, turnovers in joint practices, turnovers in preseason games. So maybe they keep that going. Obviously, when Jimmy Ward comes back, that improves. And the offense is really good at the skill positions, and we are talking about the quarterback. The thing we're not talking about, the other weakness, is the offensive line. And that's weird when you have maybe the best offensive lineman in football at the most important position on the team in Trent Williams. But, there's been a lot of concern about the three interior guys who are all new starters. And then you've got McGlinchey, who's coming back from an injury, and now his knee has been aggravated, and you wonder, is he going to hold up? So, that's a double whammy there. If the quarterback situation becomes unsettled and the line's unsettled, that's a lot to overcome offensively. If it were just one or the other, I feel like Kyle could scheme his way out of it to a degree.
Yeah, I think that losing Laken Tomlinson could be a serious regret at some point here, if not early on in the year. Mike, obviously they've got a pretty soft schedule to open the season. Everyone is pointing the 49ers in the direction of the playoffs, and as I look around the NFC, I don't think that is an unobtainable goal in any way. I do think that they should be a 10, 11, 12 win football team. I've been wrong about these things before, but I really think that they're going to have a pretty darn good year. As you look around the NFL, is there a team that you think that fits the model of who you think is about to have a very good year? And conversely, do you think there is a team that maybe was a playoff team last year that you think is about to take a step out of the postseason?
Well, the second one's too easy. The Patriots made the playoffs last year, and that is not pretty right now. And I know it's just preseason and all that, and it's Bill Belichick. But, he entrusted his offense right now to Matt Patricia, who, other than Urban Meyer, is one of the most disastrous head coaches in recent memory, and also is a defensive guy by trade, and Joe Judge, who was even worse, potentially, as a head coach, and was a special teams coach by trade. And that's not to say that you can't switch over. Raheem Morris did it. He's a great coach. I'm just saying, you've got a young quarterback. I mean, I tweeted that today. You'd much rather be Trey Lance with Jimmy hovering than Mac Jones with Joe Judge and Matt Patricia scheming it up. And I think people are in denial about what's going on there. The roster's not nearly as good as it was. The jury's out on Mac Jones. The offensive acumen took a big hit when Josh McDaniels left that building. And, nothing lasts forever. It's been an incredible run, but I think that's going to be bad. And as far as the 49ers, if you tell me the line and quarterback position are going to be okay, they're right at they're right up there with all the best teams. But those are two big ifs where, you compare them to a team like Buffalo and go, well, they got Josh Allen. I think the quarterback position's pretty settled and the line's been pretty good. So, I think there are teams on paper that look more complete, and that doesn't mean Kyle Shanahan can't scheme something up for Trey Lance that elevates the 49ers right into that conversation.
I know that you engendered yourself with Bill's ownership over the course of a few seasons of relationship and interviews with the Pagulas. How surprised were you to see them choose to keep Matt Ariza before they decided to let the punter with rape accusations go?
Well, it wasn't their finest hour. First of all, I don't want to put that on Kim. She's going through some stuff health-wise and is definitely not part of that decision-making process right now. And we are all sending her healing thoughts. And, it's been a lot. So, but I have a ton of respect for the people in that building, with Terry and then Brandon Beane, the general manager. And I just think, they goofed and they know it. And, listen, those are horribly serious allegations. Obviously, I'm not saying they're true or not true. The overtones are brutal. And, and then you saw a franchise in Cleveland that was willing to overlook a lot of things in the Deshaun Watson case because, he's one of the very best quarterbacks on earth. This is a punter. And I don't want to tarnish a very serious subject by doing my punter shtick, but let me just say this, and I know there have been some punters out there, former punters, who've gotten very offended when I've said some things, but I'm going to try to say it nicely. So it's not that I don't respect punters. I do. I respect them. I just don't respect them nearly as much as I respect the other 52 players on the roster, and that includes the long snapper and the kicker. I think when people talk about punting, it's usually giving them more reverence than they deserve. Good for them. They can whack a ball down the field and possession changes. So to me, and I covered the Bills draft. I was there, and I kind of gave Brandon Beane some good-natured grief when he drafted the kid, not because of anything I do, but because it was a punt.
He's a punter.
To me, I just don't think. And listen, I have a similar rant sometimes about special teams, which I now have to revise after watching the 49er-Packer playoff game because apparently special teams are a legitimate part of the game. So I stand corrected.
Is there the Garoppolo thing is that's a one-off. That's off to the side. Other than that, what was the most surprising thing to come out of anybody's training camp that will somehow impact the regular season?
Besides ayahuasca.
Probably that.
That's not that surprising.
Well, you know how we are in Berkeley, man. We
we get down.
we're open to alternative healing practices. No, listen, I think to me it's super surprising that people are not reacting to what's going on in Foxborough the way they would in normal times. I mean, I just think it looks awful. It seems awful on paper. And it seems like a lot of denial to me. If you listen to Mac Jones or Bill Belichick talk, it's not the usual Bill Belichick blow off, like, I don't have time for your analysis. He's kind of like, hey, we're going to be fine. Like, are you? Because I really question that. And then the other thing that is, I think interesting to people around here, some of whom still follow a team that abandoned the great city of Oakland twice, it has not been a good day for those who defend the previous regime's drafting acumen, and that's a that's a shrinking class. But Dave Ziegler, the new general manager of the Raiders, has come in and just basically said, we hate your roster. We got rid of Alex Leatherwood, who was picked 17th overall last year and is an offensive lineman. Whoa. Got rid of a bunch of other guys who, were picked by the previous regime, and are keeping a bunch of young guys, some of whom are undrafted free agents. So I listen, I think if anything, we want to go back and give Rich Bisaccia and Greg Olson and Gus Bradley and the people who survived the Gruden debacle and then the horrible Henry Ruggs tragedy and still got to the playoffs and played the Bengals tough. Let's give them a belated round of applause for doing it with what apparently is a roster that is not to the liking of the people brought in to replace Mike Mayock.
Mike, thank you so much. It was great to catch up with you. It had been a really long time. We appreciate it, and the San Francisco Chronicle certainly got better by adding you. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks so much for having me. I'll talk to you guys soon.